everyone, and welcome. My name is Angela, and I am so excited to have you all here with me for our daily discovery with FCMoD. Today, we'll be doing one of my favorite experiments from the museum, sink or float. Let's get started. Have you ever played in the water before? Maybe you've gone swimming in a swimming pool, or maybe you've played around in your bath. If so, you've probably noticed or observed that some things stay on top of the water while other things go to the very bottom of the water. When something stays on top of the water, we call that floating. Float starts with the letter F. Can you make that sound with me? F, f, f. Float. Good job. When something goes to the bottom of the water, we call that sinking. Sink. Sink starts with the letter S. Can you make the sound that an S makes? S, s, s. Good work. Can you show me with your body what it looks like to float? I think floating looks kind of like this. Can you show me with your body what it looks like to sink? I think sinking looks kind of like this. Awesome job. I have some items here that will either sink or float. I have a Lego. I have a ping pong ball. I have a plastic bug. I have a rock. I have a crayon. I have a die. I have a button. I have a wooden bead. And I have a paper clip. As good scientists, there are two things we need to do. First of all, before we do any tests, we need to make a hypothesis. Can you say that word with me? Hypothesis. Awesome job. A hypothesis is your very best guess about what will happen. You can use what you already know from different times that you've played in the water to make guesses about what will sink and what will float. The second thing we need to do as scientists is keep track of what sinks and what floats. We have a couple of ways we're going to do that. First of all, after we put an item in the water, we will put it in one of these bowls labeled float or sink. If it sinks, we'll put it in the sink bowl, and if it floats, we'll put it in the float bowl. Then at the very end, we are going to take these magnets with the different items and put them on the board up here so that it's really easy to see our results and to see what we found out in our experiment today. Let's go, scientists! Our first test is with this ping pong ball. Do you think it will sink or do you think it will float? Tell me your hypothesis. Interesting. Let's test it to find out. The ping pong ball is staying right on top of the water, so that means that it's floating. So we're going to put it over here in the float bowl. Now, if your hypothesis was incorrect, so if you guessed that the ping pong ball was going to sink instead, that's totally okay. As scientists, it's all right for us to make wrong hypotheses. It's just important that we test whatever our hypothesis is to get the right answer and to learn more. Our second item is this button. You can see the button is made of plastic and it has holes on the inside. Can you count the holes with me? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 holes. Let's see what happens when we put the button in the water. But first, what do you think will happen? Will it sink or will it float? Let's test. The button is floating right on top of the water, so we'll put it in the float bowl. Our next item is this plastic bug. Do you think the bug will sink, or do you think it will float? Can you tell me? All right, let's test it. It sunk down to the very bottom really fast. So we're gonna put it in the sink bowl over on this side. Next up is this Lego. You can see it has 4 prongs, and on the back it looks like this. Do you think the Lego will sink, or do you think it will float? Let's see. Ooh. The Lego is kind of halfway between floating and sinking. It's a little bit different from the other things we test, but since it's mostly over the water, I'm gonna count it as floating. So we'll put it over here in the float bowl. Next up is this rock. This is a special rock called a pumice stone. Have you made your hypothesis about what this rock will do? If not, go ahead and make one. All right, let's test the pumice stone. The pumice stone is floating, which is quite a bit different from what most rocks do. We'll put it in the float bowl. We have 4 items left, so we're about halfway through. Good work. Next up is this crayon. Crayons are made of wax, and they have a paper covering them, usually. Let's see what happens to the crayon. Have you made your hypothesis? All right, let's see. The crayon floats, so we'll put it in the float bowl. Next up is this die. We use die or dice to play games. Do you think it will sink, or do you think it will float? Let's test it. It sunk very quickly to the bottom of the bowl, so we'll put it in the sink bowl. 2 more items. Next up is the wooden bead. You can see it's made of wood, and it's got a hole through the middle. What's your hypothesis? Do you think it will sink, or do you think it will float? Can you tell me out loud? All right, let's test it and see. The wooden bead floats, so we'll put it in the float bowl. And last but not least, we have this paper clip. Paper clips are made out of metal, which gives them this nice silver color, and they're used for putting papers together. Do you think the paper clip will sink or float? Let's test it. It sunk to the very bottom of the bowl, so we'll put it in the sink pile. Awesome job, scientists! Way to go! In a minute, we'll put all of our results together to see what we found out. You did a great job making hypotheses and sorting your results as a scientist. High five! All right, the next thing we need to do is make our results a little bit easier to see and see what we found out. So we're gonna take each of the items in this float bowl and then in the sink bowl, and we're gonna put them up on this board. So the ping pong ball floated, so I'm gonna find the ping pong ball magnet, and I'm gonna put it up here in the float category. The Lego floated, so I'll put the Lego in the float category. The pumice stone floated, so I'll put the pumice stone up. The button floated, Here's the button. The crayon floated. Here's the crayon. And the bead floated. Here is the bead. How many items total did we have that floated? Can you count them with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of our items floated. Now, let's get the sink bowl and put those items up on the board. This plastic bug sunk, so we'll put it here. The die sunk. And the paper clip sunk. How many items did we have that sank? Can you count them with me? 1, 2, 3. Awesome job. Now let's see how many total items we tested today. So we're going to count all of the items on this board. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We tested 9 items. Awesome job. Which category did we have more of? Did we have more things that floated, or did we have more things that sank? Can you tell me? Yeah, we had more items that floated in our experiment. Awesome work. I'm sure you have lots of different things around you that you can test to see if they sink or if they float. Just make sure that you ask a grown-up's permission first. After you've experimented, I have a special engineering challenge for you, and that's to build a boat. A boat lets something that usually sinks float. For example, this little plastic bug, we saw that it usually sinks, but if we put it in a well-constructed, well-engineered boat, then we can keep it out of the water and we can make it float instead. So you can make your boat out of anything that you have around you, with the grown-up's permission, of course, but one of my favorite materials is aluminum foil. Thank you so much for joining me and Fort Collins Museum of Discovery for today's Daily Discovery. I really enjoyed our time together, and I hope that I get to see you again soon. For more fun and exploration, visit the museum's website at fcmod.org/programs for a new activity or video each day. See you next time.